In this video, you'll learn the exact CSS topics companies are asking about in 2026. We'll cover BEM naming conventions, CSS modules, Tailwind CSS, performance optimization, core web vitals, and how to talk about your work like a professional developer. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to answer common CSS interview questions with confidence. Let's get started. Here's a secret that surprises many developers. Interviewers rarely care whether you remember every CSS property. What they care about is how you think. Can you write maintainable code? Can you build systems that scale? Can you improve performance? Can you explain your choices? That's why topics like BEM, CSS modules, Tailwind, and core web vitals appear in interviews again and again. Let's start with BEM. BEM stands for Block Element Modifier. Think of BEM as a naming system that keeps your CSS organized. A block is a standalone component. An element is a part of that component. A modifier changes the appearance or behavior of that component. For example, a card component is a block. The title inside the card is an element. A featured version of the card is a modifier. The biggest advantage of BEM is clarity. When another developer sees your class names, they instantly understand the structure. This becomes incredibly valuable when you're working in large projects with hundreds of components. Now imagine an interviewer asks, why would you use BEM? A strong answer would be, I use BEM because it improves readability, reduces naming conflicts, and makes large code bases easier to maintain. Notice something important. You're not talking about syntax. You're talking about solving problems. That's exactly what interviewers want to hear. If you're having a light bulb moment right now, make sure you're subscribed. The next topic is one of the most common interview questions in front-end development: CSS modules versus Tailwind. Let's compare them. CSS modules solve a major problem in traditional CSS: global class name collisions. With CSS modules, class names are automatically scoped to a component. That means styles stay isolated and predictable. Tailwind takes a completely different approach. Instead of writing custom CSS classes, you use utility classes directly in your HTML or JSX. This often leads to faster development. It also helps maintain visual consistency across a project. So which one is better? The truth is, neither is universally better. They solve different problems. CSS modules are great when you want traditional CSS organization with local scoping. Tailwind is excellent when you want speed, consistency, and a utility-first workflow. A professional interview answer might sound like this: CSS modules provide local scope while keeping traditional CSS workflows. Tailwind increases development speed and consistency through utility classes. My choice depends on project requirements and team preferences. Notice how balanced that answer is. You're showing that you understand trade-offs. That's exactly how senior developers think. At this point, you've learned how to answer one of the most common CSS interview questions. Make sure to grab the summary notes and code snippets from the resources below. They'll save you a lot of study time later. Now let's move on to performance optimization. This is where many candidates separate themselves from the crowd. Companies love developers who make websites faster. A fast website improves user experience. It also improves business results. When discussing CSS performance, focus on practical improvements. Remove unused CSS, minify CSS before deployment, optimize images, reduce unnecessary complexity, keep styles maintainable. Modern image formats like WebP can dramatically reduce file sizes. Removing unused CSS reduces download size. Minification reduces the amount of code users need to load. If an interviewer asks how you improve CSS performance, you could say, I reduce bundle size by removing unused styles, optimizing assets, and using build tools to minify CSS. I also focus on maintainable architecture to prevent CSS bloat over time. That's a strong answer because it connects technical decisions to real outcomes. Now let's talk about Core Web Vitals. This topic appears more frequently every year. Core Web Vitals measure real user experience. There are 3 metrics you should know. LCP, largest contentful paint. This measures how quickly the main content appears. CLS, cumulative layout shift. This measures visual stability. In simple terms, does the page unexpectedly jump around while loading? And INP, interaction to next paint. This measures how responsive the page feels when users interact with it. One common way to reduce layout shifts is by defining image dimensions. When the browser knows an image's size ahead of time, it can reserve space before the image loads. That prevents content from moving unexpectedly. If an interviewer asks about Core Web Vitals, you might answer, Core Web Vitals measure user experience. I improve them by optimizing images, reducing layout shifts, minimizing render blocking resources, and keeping assets lightweight. That's exactly the kind of answer recruiters want to hear. Quick question for you. If you were starting a new project tomorrow, would you choose Tailwind or CSS Modules? Leave a comment and tell me why. I'd love to hear your reasoning. Now let's discuss something most tutorials completely ignore: how to talk about your work during interviews. Recruiters are not hiring CSS files. They're hiring problem solvers. Instead of saying, I used Flexbox, try saying, I used Flexbox because it simplified alignment and reduced layout complexity. Instead of saying, I used Tailwind, try saying, I used Tailwind to improve development speed and maintain consistency across components. See the difference? You're explaining the reason behind the decision. That's what interviewers care about. A useful framework is STAR. Situation, task, action, result. For example, the website was loading slowly. I needed to improve performance. I optimized images and removed unused CSS. As a result, load times improved significantly. Whenever possible, include measurable results. Numbers make your achievements more convincing. Now it's your turn. For this challenge, build a product card component using BEM naming conventions. Create a featured version using a modifier class. Then write a short explanation describing whether you would choose CSS Modules or Tailwind for that project. Finally, identify 3 performance improvements you would make before deployment. This challenge combines everything we've covered today. Before we finish, let's review the key takeaways. BEM stands for Block Element Modifier. It improves scalability and maintainability. CSS modules provide locally scoped styles. Tailwind speeds up development with utility classes. Performance optimization is a major interview topic. Core Web Vitals measure real user experience. Recruiters care more about your reasoning than your memorization. And the best developers communicate technical decisions clearly and confidently. Congratulations. You've reached the end of the HTML and CSS Zero-to-Hero course. You now understand not only how CSS works, but also how to discuss it professionally during interviews. Don't forget to take the quiz in the description. It's the fastest way to lock in what you've learned. If this course helped you level up, give the video a like, share it with another developer, and subscribe for more practical coding content. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next adventure.